there is absolutely no doubt that you can pitch yourself just about anywhere, but the question that you have to ask yourselves is, where is right for my styling? Where is right for my fabrics? And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little later on when we get on to very practical subjects like costing. But I think we have come to the end of the idea of the over-precious designer, because they nearly all seem to be piling in, dare I use that word, piling into the middle market and the lower middle market, as well as working at the higher market. I was teaching last autumn at London College of Fashion when Victor and Rolf had a limited edition at H&M, and two of my 20-year-old girls came leaping into the class, clutching carrier bags and saying, I've got it, I've got one of them. And I turned around to them and said, yes, you've got it now, but have a look on eBay at 5 o'clock this afternoon and see how many will have already been sold. Because we live in a very ephemeral fashion world. So ask yourselves, are you there for long life, elegant product or short cycle, fast fashion product? What suits you best? From your point of view in the audience, I think you have to be aware of how enormously concentrated the British retail buying sector is. There was a recent report in Draper's Record that said that between M&S, Next and the Arcadia Group, they now account for over 50% of all unit purchases of women's wear in the UK. That's 50% in the hands of 3 people. So the answer really to the question is to decide where in the marketplace you are going, and then secondly, because they have so many people knocking on their doors, approach them with something tangible. Please, not a concept, not just a mood board, something that you've actually taken the trouble to turn into a real thing. Buyers are completely spoilt. They see far too many people, and therefore they're blasé, and they need something very direct to excite them. I mean, nobody is going to walk out of London College of Fashion tomorrow and get pitched into there unless you're one of the 2 people who won the 2 big prizes this year and they get a sponsorship to go with it. For most people, after university, 2 or 3 years to learn your business is very valuable before you take that big plunge and go it alone.
So let's talk costing, because another thing that crops up all the time, what price should we be selling? What about margins? What about profitability? How do we build a business from a basement into a skyscraper? Do you want to come in on that one?
Okay. This is a point at which all you creative people are liable to turn off completely, because I'm going to talk about costing for a few minutes. And it's exactly what David said about me teaching things like business enterprise at London College. I'm well aware that a load of 19-year-olds are going, oh, boring, boring. And I'm just hoping that 3 years later they're going to say, oh, I wish I'd listened to Malcolm when he told me about how to manage the cash flow, because now I've got no cash. Costing, though. The first thing I think that I would impress upon anybody who's creating an individual and therefore by definition an idiosyncratic product, because you're trying to do something quirky, unusual, eclectic, whatever words you want to use to describe it, is that costing and pricing are 2 completely different things. Costing is semi-scientific, building up from the components of the garment, the bag, the shoe, whatever it is that you're making, to what you think you can get it made and shipped for, and therefore into your premises. Pricing should not be based on that. Pricing should be based on what's it worth in the marketplace. And the 2 things are not necessarily the same thing. Do your costing, then do your market pricing, then look at the competitors if you have any, and then see whether the two line up.
Okay, anybody else got any comments on costing?
I think exactly what you said is correct. I think it's, there can often be a difference. And sometimes, I think where a business gets into trouble is if your market pricing actually ends up being too low for what the costing is. So it's very important to have an understanding of both areas. And I think what you may well find is exactly what Malcolm said, is that some of your basic products you need to kind of lose margin on. Some of your more premium products you can actually increase your margin on. And in fact, that's where you make you make a different kind of money, because you can achieve much more volume in the more basic items. You sell much less quantity in the premium items, but you get much more margin. So it's a little bit of a balancing act.